Hi and welcome to part 6 of the David Kerzel engine build. In this video we're going to have a look at the balance weights which controls the valve opening and shutting. As the wheel spins faster, the flywheel, these weights will spread apart and in turn they'll push a bobbin at the back here which will push on the regulator arm which will control the opening and shutting of the valve. So if we go to the next drawing. So these are the balance weights here. What it suggests in the plan is to make a washer, a round washer, and then cut them to size on the milling machine. So here's our piece of brass. It's going to be made out of brass. And a block or a plug to mount that to. And then obviously put that in the lathe and turn that to a washer. So the mounting holes which will end up connecting to the arms is what I'm going to use to hold that down onto the block with. So we'll get that sorted first and then we'll come back to the drawing and I'll show you some of the other parts. Right, next job, we've got to slice that down the middle. So I've been thinking about how I'm going to get that accurate, this slice here, because obviously that relates to these two holes here. So I've come up with an idea and I'll show you that now. I've put a couple of parallels in here and I'm just going to put the screws in which will eventually tighten these to the arms. So them holes are quite close to the screw size, and I'll just lay that on the parallels and nip that up. So now this will be accurate to where I'm going to be finding these edges, and then I can find the center. So I can't use my edge finder because of the it's going to hit up here before it hits at the bottom, and I don't want to put, this is the actual finished size, so I don't want to put any creases or any any marks, nicks or anything like that into there. And what we'll do, I've got a piece of drill rod here, or silver steel we call it, which is obviously dimensionally accurate. My collet chuck is running about 1 thou out, and I've measured the silver steel and that's the same, so I'm only running 1 thou out, which is ideal. So we'll just bring that in just to the top of the parallels there, and then if we get a piece of paper we'll just put that in there, and we'll just keep moving the table until we nip that piece of paper. Which is, let's just start to grab there, 0 the DRO, and then we'll come to the other side. And we'll repeat the process on this side. And just there it's starting to grip it. Right, and we take that measurement and then we can divide that by 2. So I found out which is half, so we'll just move that across to halfway. There we are, we're now halfway. So what I'm going to do now is just move this out of the way and bring the table forward. I'm going to put a milling cutter in here, and I'm just going to mill straight through here. And I'm going to do that both sides, so top and the bottom here. And then once I've done that, I can then turn at 90 degrees. And then where the cuts are, I can then line those up with the top of the parallels. And that will give me, pretty much, I'll just eyeball it, but that will give me pretty much spot on, dead in the center where I need to be. Right, so I've cut through both of these on the bandsaw. And what you can see now is what I was talking about, this level part here. So that's where the cutter went, the end wheel went through. And we're going to use that to level it up in the vise. So I'll just sit that down on the parallel in the vise. And I'll just put some rulers together here, some steel rules. And that'll give me somewhere to level this up to. So I'm just going to eyeball this. That looks about right there. And what I've done to the left here, if I just move the camera, is I've left the parallel sticking out. So I'm going to bring the end mill down to the top of the parallel, because these on the machining detail have been measured from the back to where they need to be machined down to. So that's going to give me my 0 here, and then I'll just work off that and then obviously machine these down to the size they need to be. That's both of them machined. So what we need to do now is machine these two flats at the top and the bottom of each one, and that's where the pins will stick out for where the springs will connect to, which will control the way the weights fly out on the flywheels. Well, I've had a look on the plan here, and I can't get this dimension from where it's finished machining here. I can't get down from that part down to where these flats need to be machined, other than working them out from the centre out for the 0.95 measurement. But what I'm going to do is I've drawn it in CAD. This is metric. So the overall distance is 34.5 mil, which is that distance there to there, which does work out right. And then I've just got to machine down 5.2 mils from the tip down to the flat where it's going to end up. So all I'll do is I'll set this up in the milling machine, and then I'll touch off right at the very top here, and then obviously I'll just machine down the 5.2 mil. So I've got a couple of parallels in here, and then we'll just set a square onto that, and we'll just drop this in here, and I'll push it up to the square. Tighten that up, and then we're ready to machine. So I'll just touch off on here, and then we can machine down to the 5.2. Well, that's those parts all machined, and all I've got to do now is just put the pins, drill holes for the pins, and obviously put those in top and bottom just for the springs to connect to. And also I've got to reduce each one of these down in thickness as well. But I'll do that off camera, and then so all what's left to do now is the pins where the springs are going to connect around. So I've ordered some shafting. So this is a metric shaft, but that'll have to do. So we're going to cut these to length. They're roughly around 10 mil long, and then we've got to put this small indent in around the top for the springs. So I'm going to use a Dremel tool for that. So we'll set that up in the lathe, and then we'll cut those spring indents. So here's the setup for cutting these. I've got the just a motor mount out of, or it's a spare motor mount out of my CNC router. Normally that would hold the spindle in the router. And then I've got the die grinder, and then I've just got the small Dremel bit on here. I've got the chuck with the parallel arbor out of the milling machine, so that will hold the piece, because my chuck won't go down to that size. I can't grip it because obviously the jaws will only close to a certain size. And then we've just got a digital mic. Just so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to dress the end with the grinding wheel, just where I've cut it with the hacksaw, and then I'll move it in 1.5mm, and then obviously do my cut. So that's all these parts made. What I done with the pins was the holes what I drilled into the brass, I drilled them slightly under size and then just pressed both the pins in with a bit of Loctite on. So they should hold in, shouldn't ever come out. Then these are the arms. I'll show you where these go on the actual engine. So the weights are here, as you can see on the flywheel. Then these are screwed together onto these like so, and then the arms stick through like that, and they in turn connect to the bobbin, which is obviously turning around on the crankshaft, and then the regulator arm comes into the front slot there, and then obviously that leads through to pushing the valve open and shut. So yeah, so happy with how those turned out. These were quite fiddly to make because obviously they're precision, you know, the arm which comes off here is precision part. So I had to try and set all this up, and I did actually manage to do it in the rotary table. It was a bit of a fiddle, but I had to make up a jig and then hold those in while they turned around the centre point, you know, obviously of the rotary table. But they come out well. I had to make another one of these. As I was coming around here on the rotary table, I took out too much width. It's quite, because the tolerance here is really close. You know, they more or less got to grip that as they push them in. So, and I just made that too small, so I had to remake one of those. But on the whole, yeah, that's turned out really well. So, anyway, thanks for watching. See you next time.